lately I've thought about bringing people of the non-Torah, non-Noachitic persuasion back into it, because I do think it would be boring to listen, for the choir to listen to a preacher, or vice versa, preaching to the choir. It wouldn't seem it would be, and I don't mean to say this in a wrong way, but it would be boring.
No, of course.
If I got some folks of different persuasions of thought to come in and ask questions and enlighten us or me, perhaps we could produce the learning together. I wanted it to be for the common man. I didn't want it to be just a strictly Abrahamic Noachitic hangout where everybody agrees. Look how strong we are. Look how many of us there are. That would seem. So I'm going to start, trying to open it up to other people instead of it being exclusive. That was a
No,
big people gave when I came back to it was how come we're not invited? How come we can't talk anymore? And I always say, well, Reuven took it over, and you'd have to ask him.
mhm.
So I'm hoping that we could get some other folks, so some non-persuade, of a different persuasion who could take part in the.
Yeah, I definitely I'm cool with it, but my fear is always like this is even people who are in the Abrahamic circles that they will preach about their faith and not keep it strictly to Torah. And that was my fear, and that's why a lot of times I personally won't talk about my faith because my focus is not really so much about my persuasion, but just Torah. And if there was something similar to mine, then I will bring it out, or even different. So it was just, I guess, in order to control the room and to control the subject matter, my fear was that it would just go on to some other thing, and then we'll lose track. But yeah, that's just my worry about it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we don't need missionaries, and we don't need another debate.
no, of course,
Science,
yeah,
science
and
just doesn't work with people, even if it is. It just doesn't work.
yeah, they start bringing even scientific backgrounds and things like that. I don't like to have those type of debates, especially when you're learning about a scripture. Um, and I wouldn't mind experiences, if somebody experienced something or how they applied it to their lives. um, I think that's excellent because I think it goes a little bit more personal in a way. And I really appreciate hearing about that and their understanding and their disagreements.
Well, if we don't get personal, it can be quite a conversation.
Yeah, definitely agree.
On the subject of biblical literalism, is it really that bad of a thing, especially when you're coming out of when you're coming from idolatry, when you're coming from a very watered down and tampered with translation? Is it not smarter when taking a fresh approach to take it literally first? Am I wrong for doing that? I'm not saying that I have to believe it, but it should be at least in context be taken as literal first. Is that a problem? Do you think? Either
I
one of
think, and I have a weird perspective on this. I think people are traumatized from all the nonsense from other literalists. And anything that's taken literally, it's like bad, slap your hand. So that's why I think when you're talking about esoteric, things. Hold on for 1 second.
that's a great ringtone.
Yeah, it helps me calm down when my bill collectors are calling. There you go. Um, yeah, so I think there's something I guess because it's our conditioning to really think about the esoteric interpretations of scripture. So yeah, it's a very fine line. And then a lot of times, people will coincide with science of today, or so it leaves the door open with a lot of criticism and emotions that attach with it. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
it's a very fine line. And a lot of times that's why I don't talk too much about the esoteric interpretations. Because I actually, honestly, for me, I get a little confused because I'm thinking about how could this apply, not just about the past, but how does it apply to me today? You know,
hmm,
so I have those thoughts, and I find that with those type of literal meanings, it goes right into the esoteric realm where you start contemplating.
I see.
Yeah, I start contemplating about these things, and I don't. It's not that I don't accept them as truth or untruth. It's just like I start just thinking about it. But some people don't take that approach. Some people would be like, "That's wrong," or "How could you say those things?" And we get into this trouble. Yeah, it's very. I guess with those type of things, I'm very careful because it brings out a lot of emotions. Especially you start talking about the ark or about other historical events.
Yeah, yeah. Um, a good example as to why I think we should strive to get as close to the original as we possibly can, if not the original, is does have to somewhat do with translation, and that we need to explore what translation can mean. For instance, it'll say you may give the improperly slaughtered meat to the proselyte among you, or proselyte at the gate, or the sojourner among you. Um, they've also said among the litigant has been used in replace of the word ger, and it's the same word ger every time, but depending on context or the people translating it, it changes over the years. But when you go back to the Hebrew, it just says the ger. So then you have to ask yourself, what is a ger? And that's where, why I would take it literally, because the sojourner or the proselyte does not necessarily mean a ger. And not all gers are proselytes. I mean, or for that matter, sojourners. Abraham was called a ger.
Hmm.
And Abraham, was not a Noahide necessarily. He was something different.
Well, I would say that he's always a monotheist, in my view. That's what I would call, Abraham.
You couldn't call him a sojourner though. So so you'd have to a sojourner with Israel. So you'd have to look at the. So that's why I mean by it. It would be safer to go, especially with this. But when people who when folks, good folks, but they say to me, "You're too literal," and they're Noahides. It's like, well, aren't we supposed to get literal? I thought that was the point of us. I thought that was what we're supposed to do. Uh,
Well, at the same time, your literalism may be different from theirs.
yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Then that's why it needs some explaining. I'm telling you, it goes into the explanation, but at the same time, when we're talking about it, when people are talking about literal interpretations, then if the conversation is done right, then it kind of delves down to the esoteric, to the application of the text, and it just goes really deep if it's done right. So I think it's all due to how it's presented.
Hmm.
How is the text presented, to the group or to the masses. when there's more people, there's going to be more conflict, of course. But when you have a group, let's say, 5 to 8, for example, then if we could get everybody somehow in sync, and start talking about it, because that's just why Leviticus was so difficult, because Leviticus, it's very literal, I think. It's extremely literal. It's so literal that because it becomes, for me, so mystifying, because it's not just a literal text, but it has so many dimensions to it that we can't even comprehend the other sides of it, the thought process, the reasons why this was done, and it has so many. I guess if you ever look at a diamond, so many shapes and sizes and things like that. So it is. That's why I couldn't really talk about it, because it's not something that we could just read through, just like that. And I think what happened was, too, I think a lot of people got lost with it. It would be so easy if we just take it for what it is, take it literally, and take it for what it is. But I don't think our minds work that way. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't. I think we become very unsatisfied with these simple explanations. I think comes down to simplistic explanations, but it's like, let's say, an algebra problem or something like that. That's the way I see it, Leviticus. It's weird.
Very
Maybe it's wrong. Yeah, go ahead.
very complex. Has Leviticus has definitely sharp corners.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's something like with Exodus and Genesis, you know, there's a lot of poetic expressions and stories, and you could see it. And,
Hmm.
I think people got more into it, but when you got into these laws, uh, it seems dry. But that's the thing, it seems dry, but I know it wasn't. Because I was just scratching my head throughout the whole time we were doing Leviticus. I was like, oh my God, this is too overwhelming.
I come up with a lot of things after I read it. It takes a while for me to soak in, and the next week we're supposed to be on another parsha, and all I want to do is talk about what I've been chewing on for the past week.
Yes.
Because there's a lot that leaps out at you later. There's so much, yeah, a lot to take in. It's a dense diet of reading. Leviticus, definitely.
Yeah. The other parsha that I've been going to, well, I haven't been going to for a couple of weeks because I've been extremely busy, but he does it in a different way where, he takes a small part of a section and then expands it on it. And it's very esoteric and it's very mystical, if you want to call it. But it makes so much sense because I get it.
Yeah.
I understand it. And I could see myself in that scripture in a sense.
I
I,
to
yeah,
away from reading and just get into straight discussions, because you can take one part and go off on it for hours.
exactly.
It is a pretty I would hope to, in the end, maybe if we do get a regular bunch going, that we just get straight into commentary and discussion rather than it being so dry. Because you're right, Leviticus is, especially when you read it, I mean, that is very, very dry.
But I guarantee if we just took a small part of Leviticus, like a verse, we'll talk about it for 3 hours. you know. And I think that's the way we have to. My feelings is that's the way we have to look at some of these scriptures. Um, because I think what people want to do is relate to it. How does this relate to me here and now? You know, so yeah, it's a lot to take in.
Think about doing a promo, maybe. Um, a 30-second promo just explaining who, what, when, where, and why to clarify um, what it's about. I thought that might help a little bit.
Hmm. I I asked, a person I know, he's Muslim, and I asked, hey, what about doing, Quranic study? He's like, and he was totally right on this. He's like, look, um, we need someone that really knows the book because we don't want to dive into something that we could be wrong. That really studies this book through and through, and and given the times, it's like, you know what, you're absolutely right. So that's why we never really got into Quranic studies just yet until we find those individuals that could actually, you know, dissect it and really understand the interpretations of it. Um, and I'm not saying this applies to every other scripture. No, not at all. But within our circles, it's a very we have to be very careful. Yeah. Um, and the problem is too, with some Christians, they take scripture and whatever it means to them, and this is what they're going to interpret it as, and that's it. And they go such an opposite direction of what it really means, and I think they devalue it in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my yeah. I said some. I'm not just a specific group.
Sure.
Yeah.
You too. Really loud ones. I, if I may ask, do you have is there an issue in Islam about Quranic literalism? And are there ever, issues?
Yeah, there are issues, but again, it's done very carefully though. But it's not such a big issue where you know we'll start going into different things. I think the Quran is the Quran. There's everybody has the same. It's the same language. It's the same. It goes into the same. Now we go into the commentary of what it means. Yeah, there's discussions about it. But I think for me personally, because I lived in this country and knowing how the Bible is taken, I see it more here than anything else. But I'm probably not the best person to talk about literal, verses. I have my scholars where I read from,
Hmm.
and I trust a lot of their judgments of how it's looked, and use my judgment in order for it logically kind of coincides with what it says.
Well, thank you.
No, no problem.
Well, I'm hoping, God willing, this will keep going on Thursdays, and um, my thing is if there's a problem, you need to tell me directly. If you have a question, if you know more than I do and I'm screwing something up, please, by all means, tell me, correct me, let me know what I've done wrong so that I may correct it, rather than um,
That's why I love Path when he comes in, um, because he really, I really value his, his knowledge with Torah. I really like a lot of things that he says.
Yeah, Path is all right. When we get to see him, it's a pleasure. It's a definite.
No, it's awesome. It's really good, and definitely we need to have some of those that really know scripture, and some of them that like us, or like me anyway, that are just here to really learn and to ask questions. Um,
It'd be nice. I've been told that everyone wants to avoid me like the plague.
well, not everyone. I'm here,
But-
so
I'm sorry.
I'm here. I'm not avoiding you, James.
If you're smart, you.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. So no, hey man, it's all
I
good.
am in for because she is excruciatingly knowledgeable and she's been at this for decades.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, her health had taken another turn for the worse. God willing, um, she'll get better soon and can join us. Um, I'd like Path to show up a little bit more. I know he knows a heck of a lot more than most who would be willing to hang out with crazy folks like me who just kind of gallop.
Hmm. Yeah, I think what a section of the parsha we're in right now.
I will be doing Kedoshim. We're catching up, is what we're doing. We skipped the parsha for Passover, which is apparently an Israeli custom, but we're out of sync with everybody else. And last week we got so tied up in the half the parsha there that we didn't get to the second half. So we're playing catch up. So it's Kedoshim. That's let me get the verses exactly, so we know. Yeah, I think we've lost J-Dubs too, um, in the discussion, which is a shame. I'm pretty sure
Hmm.
he's taken sides, unfortunately, um, and so he might not be around. Kedoshim is we'll start at chapter 19, and it goes to 21, I believe. Let me see. Let me make sure. Yeah, 21. So it's 19 to 21, two chapters. Not too bad of a study. If we have time to catch up, maybe we'll get into Vayikra.
Hmm.
But that's where we're at, is Kedoshim. And I think that's going to put us on schedule with everybody right now.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I don't know. I guess there's not much more more to discuss. So that's
Now, I have a question. Now, do you feel that when you talk about these things, even in other hangouts, that you're probably alone in this?
um, yeah, there is that initial. I think. Yeah, I don't know if it's a self-esteem thing or what. There are times, yes, and it's usually that's because I forget. I've studied under a few rabbis in my time. I'm not completely ignorant on the subject. I know I'm not all wrong. But yeah, there are times when I feel like I'm very alone.
Hmm.
But like I said, that could be a personal self-esteem issue. I've always had a flight or fight mentality for a good deal of my life, and when someone really hits me hard in the solar plexus, for my own good. Maybe their intentions are for my own good, but when I keep getting hit, I have a tendency to just cut them off and run.
Hmm.
Um, but I can't stop this thing. I've tried to get out of it. I've tried to ignore it. I've tried to just put a Torah on a shelf and let it gather dust and go and be a good, American or whatever. And I just can't do it. There's something that brings me back to God, but it's a thirst for this. I know it might seem selfish, but a thirst for knowledge. I'm not. I still have too many questions. I still have a lot of flipping flaws I got to work on. I can't get away from it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I might be alone. I don't really have support in certain things, but then when Pam shows up, I remember, and when I just have the confidence to, um, confidence is a lot of it. I think fearlessness. When I lose that fear, it all comes back, and I know that I'm not a fool. I'm not really a fool. I don't. Um, you know,
Yeah.
there have been times when I think that I might have been mistaken, and honestly, I know this might sound weird to a lot of folks, but it's like God smacks me. It is God smacking me upside the head and say, "Watch it." What are you doing? I've had those moments where it's just a face palm on my own part, and I have to apologize to God. And try to fix that problem in the future.
Hmm. Do you feel like you have to really challenge a lot of the Christian interpretations of the Old Testament?
Oh, maybe at one time. At this point now, I think that you know, and it's something that is definitely embedded in the Noahide teaching is that God-fearers deserve respect. And
Hmm.
I got a blessing from a Catholic priest the other day, or I think he was. I don't know too many people who would give me the sign of the cross and say, go in peace, my son. Don't hear that, so I'm pretty sure. And
I'm pretty sure that's Catholic.
yeah, and I don't think your average Catholic would wave his hand in a cross and say bless you. So no, I don't necessarily need to challenge, but I do feel, and this was some of the motive behind what I'm doing here is when you are in a discussion and people start popping off things that aren't in Torah, um, and saying some really far out stuff, making stuff up, and then the masses or people take that, as sometimes I do feel I need to correct them in that measure, that someone needs to step in and say, well, this is not what Torah says. Here's the scripture. When they're talking about the Abrahamic God and the eternal damnation and all this stuff that doesn't really apply, or when they'll say this in Genesis, I feel the need to maybe correct them, or let people know this is not what we cover. But like to go out and try to convince an atheist to believe like me, no, absolutely not. When it comes to going to a Christian and saying you're wrong because of this, I mean they have to bring it up, kind of a thing. I would rather not be forward about that. Benny asked a question here, and since we're live, I want to read it out to anybody who might watch this. Do you feel like you accomplished a lot from these discussions? I got my answers. Yeah, in a lot of ways, yes. I think I've made friends. I've learned a lot myself. Absolutely, absolutely, and I know that other people have benefited. Even some of the guys who used to come in early on, who gone on to other discussions, have really taken what they've learned, this nugget, of information that they got, or perspective, and have run with it and bought books on it, and I've listened to hangouts where they're discussing stuff with other people, and it kind of warms my heart a little bit for people to, for these guys who could be atheists, or whatever, and bring up what we learn in the Nexus, or what we learn from Torah, and bring it up. When I there's a video by a pal of mine who I really do like, a very controversial figure. He released a video that was like, it's like maybe somebody was listening, because he said something about the unity of God, and a lot of would label him as a Christian fellow. He doesn't, but he made a video, and it's like, so obviously it works somewhere, So in my perspective has changed a bit, especially with the atheist folk. I was very angry with them. I took a lot of what they said very personally, and I set out to attack a lot of the things people were saying, and I backed off from that. I took the videos off my channel. We don't need to hear any of that junk. I don't want to do a Jerry Springer thing. Um, when I started the Nexus, actually, is when I decided, okay. And I've met a lot of really awesome atheists since then. I've met some really cool people who definitely changed my perspective. Absolutely, Benny. And it's changed my perspective of a lot of things. When I found out there was an eighth Noahide law that applies to the sons of Ishmael, um, that we don't follow, that we have to honor and help make sure happens, if you will. That changed my look at a lot of Muslim faith, and the Muslim people, of which I am not afraid. I don't care. I'm an American, and I do not fear Muslims. It's changed my perspective of the Christian, because in the end, they're God-fearers. They deserve respect. Um, and we've had a lot of Christian and atheist folks come through the Nexus, and it's been great. My pleasure, Benny. Benny says thanks, and not a problem.
Oh yeah, there you go. You know, definitely. There's always a chance to grow, and you know, I'm looking at things differently too since I've been here. So, and for me, I, I got back into the Bible, which it was something that I never wanted to explore, never was really interested in until, the Nexus came on. It gave me the opportunity to really look at it
Oh,
and study it. Yeah.
that warms my heart.
Yeah. So it does good.
Benny asked a question here. So now you are accepting Gentiles to your hangouts to expand your knowledge. We're all Gentiles. I mean, I'm a Gentile. I started, as far as I know, the three guys who kept this thing going, or the two other guys who kept it going when I had to take a hiatus, were both Gentiles. And this is where I'm not, where there's a Buddhist philosophy, maybe it should not apply here, that the student and the teacher produce their learning together. Since I'm not a teacher, I believe even still, I would like for us to produce the learning together. We just look at the Torah, what does God say, and make the best of it. So long as we just keep to the Torah, we keep subject matter, we keep it in context, that will happen. I would prefer and it's not to expand my knowledge necessarily, but our knowledge of this thing. I've had a few rabbis in my day say, I'd say the darndest things, and it's true. Non-Jewish people who approach this, because it's been kind of sheltered from us in a lot of ways. So our perspective might the fact that we bring up questions, ask questions, bring a perspective, or even a vernacular, a way of expressing the teachings, really has blown some people away. So I would hope that we could blow each other away with this thing. It's very much a community, and I don't want to say low key, because I don't want it to downgrade what we're learning, but a common man's place. You're not going to get a common man's opening if it's a strictly Jewish, because it's for the Jews. Yes, you can listen to lectures, even if it has nothing to do with the Noahide. You can listen to lectures online, and a lot of the time it might not be something that directly applies to the Gentile. You can learn from it, and if we just gather and learn a little bit here, I would hope to have somebody with better knowledge than I. Perhaps like Frank was saying, maybe you can walk away with it. Maybe it'll spark an interest, or whatever it takes. Hope that explains things for you, Benny. Speaking of a man of greater knowledge, Gavriel, shalom. How you doing, sir? Have you a mic? I was going to ask your opinion of biblical literalism. Is it Is it something I should even worry about? Um, would you say, especially being who you are, an Israelite and all, Israeli? Oh, am would you have any suggestions? Um, okay, no mic at the moment for Gabrielle. No, not a problem. Would you say that maybe I'm on the wrong path? Is there something you could suggest I do better in terms of biblical literalism? I would think that the closer we try to get to written Torah, we would it'd be better off for everybody. But apparently, biblical literalism in the Noahide community lately has been looked at as it's been frowned upon by some folks, and it's caused a bit of division, which was never my intention. I don't like the term real Noahide. That really bothers me. I don't like being told, well, you're not a real Noahide. What is a real Noahide in the common year, 2015? What is a real Noahide? Is there such a thing? Um, yeah, on all non-Jews are Noahides. Period. Amen. Yeah. Um, and I know I'm not Jewish. My Hebrew is lacking, but gaining at the same time. I know I'm not a rabbi. I'm not trying to paskin. I'm not trying to teach people the way or start a movement. Uh, I just wouldn't think that I was wrong, or that I'm in the wrong, or that I'm leading people away from God, if you will, or the Noahide code. Um, I would hope that I'm not doing that, and that's an issue that's been brought up, and I don't want to step on any toes. I don't want to make anybody look bad. I don't want to, and I know I'm not perfect. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not I'm not Jewish, but anyway. To explain, well, recently I've had a couple people who are very close to me. Um, there have been third-handed complaints given to me, and and that one particular argument that was brought up, which is estranged, I think, some relationships, was I'm too much of a literalist, and the way I express myself when reading the Torah in the Noahide Nexus or the Nest or whatever on Thursdays when we do this thing that we do, that I'm too much of a literalist and it drives people away, and that nobody wants to show up and learn because of me. And so I wanted to get some input about biblical literalism. Is it really that bad? Especially now I understand, literalism by using a stepped-on, watered-down, or rewritten translation. I know that's dangerous, and I understand the Christian interpretation is quite different, and Christian interpretations differ within the Christendom, a bunch themselves. But as a Noahide, as a someone who's trying to learn the Torah from an outsider's point of view, coming to it from a long ways away, is it a bad thing that I take it literally first? That the literal interpretation is, or at least, whenever it says the sojourner among you, well, there's no word for sojourner, there's no word for Noahide. It uses the word ger, which is the same word that even Abraham called himself, earlier in Genesis. So is it bad for me? Is it bad for the Jewish people? Is it bad for Noahides? Am I wrong for striving for biblical literalism, to get back to the source? That's my perspective. That, I guess you could say, would be my position. And I'm not trying to dissuade people from science or reason. I do reject scholarly interpretations. I do reject non-Jewish interpretations of the Torah. not as a rule, but I have a tendency to block that out first. Well, the scholars say the Jews didn't exist before, Rome. There's no evidence that there are such thing as Jewish people. You know what I mean? Okay, that has nothing to do with the Torah. Uh, Moses wasn't a real guy. That has everything to do with Torah. So I do reject certain perspectives when we discuss this thing because I find them to be antithetical to the discussion. And maybe it's because I reject those scholarly historical claims that might get me in trouble, because for instance, in Genesis, now this is a big problem, but in Genesis it says, I will blot out all I have made. Every creeping thing, if it breathed air, it's gone. Therefore, I say that all land on earth, or all land on the planet, however you want to look at it, all land in the world was flooded. That every living creature that breathed air died. That the waters prevailed over the land for a certain amount of time. Whether that's scientifically or whatever is beside the point to me. That's what Torah says. So I take that for what it is. The Torah says this, we go with this. Now, if we accept the literal translation, we can maybe expand on that. And Sufi was bringing this up earlier, that sometimes when you look at the literal, you're going to go off into esotericism. You're going to go beyond, not necessarily going against, but you might go beyond the written letter in your discussions and your thoughts. That might be a problem. Maybe there's a problem with that in biblical literalism. I'm not sure. Gabrielle wrote, if the Torah, the Bible, were to be compared to a salad bar, you could only compare a literal reading to getting only lettuce and nothing else at the salad bar. A literal reading preserves the basic narrative, but for deeper understanding, you must go beyond that. Biblical literalism isn't Jewish. The Orthodox Jews that hold to biblical literalism today do so almost as a leech off of European Christianity. For example, young earth creationism, a huge problem, and rabbis that promote it literally make me ill. Yeah, of course. But when God says I'm going to kill, when the Torah says every living creature was wiped out that breathed air, am I supposed to approach that? I mean, how wrong is it for me to say that every living thing was wiped out? If the text says that, does this mean, well, God didn't mean every living thing that breathed air got wiped out, but the Torah says every living thing got wiped out? Well, that's not really what God meant. That's not really what that means. It seems, you will not murder. Well, you can murder. Don't take that literally, because if you take that literally, I mean, we have to murder sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Maybe is that too Christian? Gavriel writes, the position of many rabbis from the Talmudic, Geonic, and Rishonic periods is that Noah and the ark is a moral allegory. Okay, even if it is an allegory, why not mix up the first and the third day and say they happen together, and we'll put the second day over after the third? Okay, it might not, if we look at it just in the context of the story itself, it changes the entire context of the story as it's written. Even as a moral allegory, why not make Noah a woman? Why not make Noah a woman who mated with three of their sons? Why not just change the story to fit something else? If you change it, if you take a letter out, if you take a word out, that would seem to me, hi Armin.
Hey.
That would seem to me, if you remove a word, you remove a letter, you change it. If it says all, well, he didn't mean all. Then why does the Torah say that? You can give it to the sojourner among you. Well, that only meant, the males. But it's like if you can find it somewhere else in Torah, if something else in Torah expands or explains that, like Noah's son saw his father's nakedness, we don't know really what that means until we get to Leviticus. And I think it's repeated even in Deuteronomy. Aren't you still changing the allegory when you don't accept what's written first? I don't mean I'm not saying you're wrong, and I don't want to push you away, sir. I'm not saying I got to know, and that's why I'm doing this right now. Hi, Ermine. How are you? Gabriel doesn't have a microphone, so we'll give him.
Okay.
Thing.
Hello, Armin.
Hey, Frank.
Good.
Great.
Hi,
Did you
Ermine.
just wake up?
Did I just wake up?
Yes, you look like you were sleeping.
Oh, does my hair look? Oh, no, I was driving in the car. I've
Wow.
been awake since like 4 this morning.
Ooh.
No, I
What
went to bed
happened?
or since 5. I went to bed at 9:30, so I just woke up early,
Okay, good. Well, even though it's disheveled, it still looks nice.
Thank you. It
Very,
is
very
totally
wild,
disheveled.
wild hair.
I'm like,
I'm sorry, I digress. Um, just being silly. Go ahead, James.
I'll read what Gabriel posted in response. Removing a word and changing a letter only really has meaning when read in the Hebrew. Translation in and of itself doesn't mean changing the text, just searching for deeper meaning. I'll tag you in some articles I wrote months ago and let you read them, and then maybe I can demonstrate what I mean a little better. Sure. Thank you very much. Definitely. I mean, now you're a Christian. You've come to Torah from a different perspective than some folks. What are your thoughts on my biblical literalism? Or
I,
my I'm a biblical literist now. I didn't know I was a biblical literalist, but it just seems to. Um, my position was, I don't know if you've been watching, but my position was that you can't just change the meaning of a word. Um, you can't change the meaning of the word. I think Gabriel might have fixed that real quick for us. But something else would be the word ger. They'll say you can give a improperly slaughtered animal to the ger. Now
mhm.
they'll use words like sojourner. They'll use words like proselyte. I've been told that even they use words like litigant. But when you look at the word in Hebrew, it says hager. Um, so what are your thoughts on
I just
biblical realism? Are we
I
doing?
I can't take the literalism approach because if I understand it correctly, let me make sure that's right. Because so much is lost in translation.
I think
So
that's a fair point. I like that. Because I think when we're talking about language,
Yeah.
it's, and I think Gabriel made a good point about reading it in its proper context in Hebrew. But when we try to translate to English, it gets kind of tricky.
It does get tricky. And really, I mean, you can translate the words the best you can, but you can't necessarily translate meaning and how you want someone to interpret it because they're going to read it from their frame of reference and understand it from that standpoint. And so the reason that I've been studying with you guys is just to understand more. It's an opportunity for me to understand more of the thinking of the day when it was written. So any single time that there is insight into a particular verse and it can give more, I don't want to call it flower, but more insight into a particular word, a saying. A lot of times, I won't pick up on those. Um, like somebody said the other day, honest as Daniel, right? Or was that the phrase? But that had a particular meaning back in the day. Um, and so you can just get those little interpretations and it just means a bit more. But even the word honest, um, as and Daniel, I mean, let's assume as is as, but um, just something as simple as honest may have more meaning in Hebrew than it does in English. And there may be a better word But it's always best to use the simplest words to get the greatest number of people to understand. So yeah, I can't take too much literally because my literal understanding of it may or may not be consistent with what was intended. Now I'm done. No, I'm not a Noahide.
She's a Christian Noahide.
Yeah.
We're all Noahides. But
Right.
yeah. I mean, I appreciate that very much. I mean, we're all learning here. Um, I don't ever want to put myself above another in this. There are plenty of people in the world that know a lot more about it than I do.
And I didn't mean that by what I said. I hope
What?
that I was thinking that you're thinking that your literal interpretation was the right one or anything.
No. And I didn't get that at all.
Okay.
Trying to cover my posterior.
So it's an interesting discussion that you guys are having. It reminds me of that movie Lost in Translation, where I mean that's how I feel a lot of times reading the Bible. Like it's just a whole nother language, and I think I'm understanding what is being said or going on, but I don't really get it. I don't truly.
Gabriel, I have a question. Ger just means stranger or foreigner. There's also a Ger Toshav and a Ger Hagor. Would that be Ger Tzedek? Oh, and he just posted a whole bunch of stuff. So I was going to ask: does Torah make a distinction of the Ger Toshav, the Ger Tzedek, the Ger Hagor? And I'll read what Gabriel says. Reading a book originally written in Hebrew translated into English in and of itself puts numerous filters between the reader and what the text is getting at. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I started learning Hebrew myself. This is by no means the fault of the reader. When you read the Bible in English, you are already reading it from the cultural standpoint of a Westerner into an English document. When you have to figure out which translation, for example, many Catholic Bibles are multi-translations from Hebrew to Greek, from Greek to Latin, from Latin to English, with all the Greek and Roman medieval cultural biases thrown in that have nothing to do with the text, not to mention the possible theological learnings of whoever did the translating. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with everything there.
I'll do the Mechon Mamre, I'll have the Stone Edition open, and then I'll have my Hertz Edition Chumash open as well. and sometimes you have to, and they don't clash. I wouldn't say they'll clash, but you can definitely get a gist anyway. And then now that I'm starting to learn Hebrew and the way I look at it, I'm even taking it literally more so. I'm beginning to look in the Hebrew side of this. They have I like things that have an English and a Hebrew, on the same page. And when and words are beginning to leap. I mean, the more I study this, words will leap out in Hebrew, and I recognize them. Oh, and that's what I mean by biblical literalism, is getting as close to the Hebrew as you can possibly get, and then we'll go from there. Adam did not come from Eve's side. Apparently, according to Genesis, Eve came from Adam's side, or God took a side of Adam. I don't even think the word is rib.
It's not rib. Yeah.
If I don't take it literally, then that means I can say, well, what they really mean is Adam was taken from Eve. Even though, it's like it seems like if you don't learn it, if you don't get as close to the Hebrew as possible, you're gonna go off in all directions.
No, I don't think it's his rib literally. I think it is his side. And I thought it was in Hebrew when we were back in the early days of Genesis studying that.
question is, what is Gabrielle asked again? My question. Well, what is biblical literalism? What am I doing in the Nexus? Am I at fault having the perspective I do? Because, I mean, I read it, and yes, I read it in English, and every time I'm in front of a bunch of people and I try to speak a Hebrew word, I choke. In the middle of reading it, I've tried. A lot of times I choke. So, yes, I do read it in English, but then I go right. I mean, the whole thing is, and one of the great things I loved about the Nexus, or I still love about it, is that we can share commentary. That we can look into what the rabbis say and get the meaning of the sages and that wasn't the
Yeah,
question.
but the second part of what Gabrielle was saying was that the other challenge that we have is we're still looking at it, an Eastern document from our Western eyes. Even as we read that, I think it's really interesting how the Quran basically asks that you read it in Arabic, right?
Correct.
And I think that there's a reason. I mean, it's pretty evident the reason why, or at least a benefit for doing so.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Even with that, it's supposed to create less confusion and cohesiveness, but at the same time, even the interpretations are
Right.
different.
Yeah, even then. Yeah.
Even then, yes. Oh,
Now,
bacon.
what is James doing home from work? Okay, so I'm writing what Gabrielle just said.
Okay, I
There's
heard that.
prophecy.
I heard
Okay.
that. I work a split. I work mornings and evenings.
Oh, okay.
My wife works part-time middays. I take care of the kids. Who's crying? I'll be right back.
Okay. There's a prophecy in one of the minor prophets that eventually many of the nations of the world will adopt Hebrew to aid their understanding. We'll have to look it up. That'd be interesting because I really don't see that one happening. There's just so many people who are I don't even know if English is going to be the main language going forward, but there's so many people who speak Arabic, Chinese, and obviously,
Spanish.
oh, I wasn't going to say Spanish. I was going to go with Indian, but
There's a lot of people who speak Spanish.
really?
Yes.
Because I always think you have Brazil speaks Portuguese.
Correct.
Um, I think there's got to be at least 1 billion people that speak English. Indian, I don't know specifically what language is in India, and then
Oh, there's a lot
Chinese.
of there's a lot of Mandarin.
Yeah, and Cantonese, Mandarin for sure.
Correct. But Spanish is one of those languages that I think this is the second language in the United States.
Oh, I don't doubt. Well, let's see
Yeah.
here. Let's just Google it.
All right, while I'm
Mandarin.
bottle of heat up.
You're right. Mandarin with over 955 million, Spanish with 405 million,
Mm-hmm.
English, Hindu or Urdu, Arabic, Portuguese, Bengali, and Russian. You're right. That's number 2.
Texas has Spanglish.
Right.
Well, Colombia is the one that preserved the Spanish the best.
Oh,
Actually,
really?
yes, because of the geographical area. Because a lot of times Spanish gets every language gets kind of mixed in with other languages, but the Spanish in Colombia, because of the location, has preserved it pretty well.
I love Colombian and Argentinian accents. Love them.
Yeah, Argentina has an Italian Spanish type of dialect
Hmm.
going. Yes, true green. You're absolutely right.
Hmm.
Just to let you know, I have a relative that was actually president of Uruguay in 1968.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm always those countries frustrate me because they always win Miss America. Brazil, Uruguay, like Colombia, Argentina, like Miss not Miss USA. What did I say? Miss
Miss Universe.
Universe. Thank you. I don't know why I said USA. I'm a blithering bumskull today.
Well, the Spanish are always, they focus on beauty, so much so that sometimes it becomes a hindrance, their
Hmm.
downfall in a sense. Yes, I do too. Yep, absolutely right. Not Italian, by the way, Roman.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, baby. You're way too excited for food. I'm dancing. Hello, all. I have a very happy, contented baby.
Yes, I heard you. I think we all did.
Thought I had the mic off.
No, you did not.
She challenged. This is what matters. Right here. This matters most.
Little one's okay.
Oh, yeah, they're great. They're great. Just great. This one's huge. My first
Yeah.
top, I guess 60 percentile or something like that. At this time, 3 months, 3.5 months. This time when Madeline was born, compared to Katie here, Katie is an inch taller, or an inch longer, and a pound heavier.
Oh wow.
I have I'm going to have a big girl here, which is good because I'm going to probably teach her some kung fu. Ain't nobody going to miss my little girls.
What is a lineage book slash scroll? Oh yeah, Gabrielle, good point. Half hour the judges are from those countries. Um, but what's a lineage scroll? Oh, a document that Jewish families have that documents their uh, lineage. Wow. How far back does it go? Your families. He's like all the way back to Moses, man. I'm joking. Whoa! I didn't think you were going to say before Christ, but man, that's really cool. Does it have the women and the men in it? Man, Gabrielle types too slow. We need what's his name in here? Ruben. I haven't seen him in forever. Where's Ruben?
He's around, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, he'll be here tonight.
No, he said he wouldn't. Neither would J-Dubs. They both said no.
You're kidding. So it's
Nope.
just going to be the two of us?
Well, I'm a biblical literalist apparently, so, and I'm the one who drives everybody off from the Nexus apparently now, so.
Are you serious?
Dead serious, my lady. That's why it's the Nexus and not the Nest. They both are very disappointed, and
How do they know? Well, it's probably me, not them. You, I mean, it's totally me.
Yeah.
I ask all the dumb questions. Oh.
Let me ask Gabrielle a question, if I may. Is it really true that it's pretty much considered amongst all rabbinical people in there in Israel and the Holy Land that Moses didn't actually exist, that there was never a Moses?
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's a claim that was made lately a couple of times. Well, you're gonna have to get used to this because this is, the perspective of most people in Israel. Yeah. And I was like, holy cow, that would seem to just, why bother, Why not move to the suburbs, eat a bunch of mayonnaise, and go shiksan? Why bother if there was no Moses? But, yeah. I guess I'm a little confused. I feel isolated and exposed a bit, and I'd like to settle it. I don't want to do anybody wrong by my Thursday night little crazy stuff.
Is that why I wasn't reminded last Thursday? Because I totally forgot about it last Thursday, and Reuben always reminds me.
Well, Reuven's been in charge of the Thursday night thing, but he wanted out, and he wanted to he wanted a divorce. So I gave him one. This was my gig. I started back in September, and I'm not going to let it go to crap just because of some internal Jerry Springer style squabbling. So I'll keep doing it. Well, I don't think we're going to have. We might not have quite the. I know I don't have the mailing list that Reuben does. Reuben's on it when it comes to networking with folks on here. I'm also hoping to get more people who aren't. I would like. Trust me. The more Jews, the better, always. But I wouldn't mind getting some other folks in there too who. I want it to be a Christian preachy thing where somebody talks for, an hour and everybody just says, "Amen, right on, preach on, brother." That's not what I wanted. There's this. Why don't you say hello, Madeline? No, she's more into saying hi to the baby. Okay, she's merely into her little sister, big time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's see. P said no. Noahides don't believe in Moses either. What is the basis for their affiliation as Noahides? The Noahide laws come orally from Mount Sinai. They explain away the reason they believe everything. I would have to agree. Well, I'm gonna keep doing it. I even if nobody shows up, it'll be just a 30-minute video of me and some commentary and my 2 cents. I'll stick a mirror here. That's what I'll do. I'll stick a mirror next to the monitor, so when I feel lonely, I can always look up and see me.
But I don't get J-Dubs' issue.
Well, J-Dubs has got some. He was talking about actually going down the street and learning from a rabbi too. So I asked him, I said, why aren't you coming? And I haven't heard back from him. So he might have some personal stuff going on, you know. But he brought up, he's not, I don't think he's angry necessarily, but he brought up, you're too literal. You take it too literally. And I think really a Noahide must have a different, or should have a different look at literalism than the average Westerner.
But what's interesting about it is, uh, aren't there going to be numerous interpretations? There are going to be some people who are literalists, and there's some people who just aren't. I'm just not a literalist with a lot of things.
For me, no, and I could be wrong, but if you look at it as close to the Hebrew or from the Hebrew, yes, absolutely, 100%. We are going to get different interpretations, different thoughts. People are going to go in all four directions of the earth from that, and I think I personally thought that was a good thing. I thought that what we wanted to achieve, that we can look at the literal and then expand on it. Frank brought something up that sometimes when you do that, it will have a tendency to reach into the esoteric, which can create problems. So, 10-4, Gabrielle. Um, so I hope I'm not doing wrong. I don't think I've had a lot of fun. I've made some good friends and studying good stuff, and my son gets to watch now and then. He's down south. And when I do it here, he'll come and sit in the background, play on his Game Boy or whatever. But he listens, and he hears it. Yeah, his mom's rather a very humanist lady. Was interested, I think, at one time when we were together 20 years ago. That might have that has changed now, but he listens and he tunes in, and the wife will sometimes turn down the TV just to hear what we're saying. She's not a religious lady per se. Don't get me wrong, she is a God-fearer, but I really believe that she's fine with or without it. I don't need to convert her. She doesn't need to believe like me. She's a good enough woman. But she'll turn it down a little bit and hear what we're discussing, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So I hope we can keep doing what we're doing, and I do look forward to tonight. I hope you guys could come. If not, that's fine. I understand it is an intense chapter of
What
strict
are
law.
Leviticus still? Yeah, that's right. My only thing is I just want to get through, like, hopefully start at 7 and be done by 9. You know what I mean? It's just harder when it starts a little later. That's all.
One thing that I have done from the start, which I want to continue to carry on, is that when I say 8 o'clock, we're live. If that's only me, great. That gives me
Right.
time to get the reading out of the way, and we can get right to commentary and discussion and application if you want to schmooze, come early. I'll open the room up early, like at 7:15 or
Right.
whatever, play some music. You want to schmooze, that's great. But at 8 o'clock, I intend to start I mean, for my profession anyway, you want to be, especially when you're on air, on time. And if you're going to say you're going to be here at 8 o'clock, and start the live process at 8, and at least give something for people that are watching out there to chew on, that might spark their interest. Start it at 8, like you say, and maybe people will file in. Maybe they won't. But I do think that when they say a live hangout at 8 every Thursday, I think that would definitely attract more people. Than we're going to have it at 8, but we're going to wait for a certain amount of people to show up so we can have a better conversation. It's not my thing. I know that's how a lot of them are done, but when you make it a scheduled weekly thing, it should be on time. It should start on time.
That'd be great.
Do I obey Jesus? I don't know. What did Jesus say? Depends on what Jesus said. Do I pray to my Father? Yes. Do I pray to my Father in heaven? Absolutely. Do I address him as our Father? Sometimes. Other times Hashem. Would I? Do I? Blessed are the peacemakers. Absolutely, I would support him in that. Um, um, I don't think that a lot of it applies to me because he was speaking. I mean, if the story's correct and whatnot, he's speaking to Jews, and he's talking to a specific bunch of Jews at a specific time in history. You'll notice that the temple was going to come down. He knew it. It was already It was already given prophecy. Ezekiel, Malachi. He knew it was coming down. I personally think he was trying to prepare the people. You're going to go out into another world. You're going to have to remember that the kingdom is within you. It's not bricks and mortar. It's within you. And when you go out into the world, which is exactly what happened to him, you're going to have to remember that kingdom. You're not going to you can't let it go just because the bricks and mortar's gone. He said that apparently the Christian thought is that Jesus discussed prayer instead of offerings. Well, they don't have a temple, and that's exactly what happened. It's not that one prayer that he gave, that example that he gave. It's much more complicated, and it does follow the offerings written in Torah. The prayers follow literally the procedure of bringing an offering to the temple, preparing yourself, preparing your offering, getting to the temple, approaching the priests, that sort of thing. Can you be a Jew and a Christian at the same time? Some people think so. Some people think so. I mean, by birth heritage, if your mom is Jewish, you're Jewish. But then again, there are commentators who say that if you reject Torah, which in some Christian circles you would have to do, then yeah, you cannot hold the title of a Jew. Jesus was Jewish, according to what people say. But then again, if he's killing trees and killing pigs, I'm not sure I could call him a Jew. I certainly wouldn't call him a Christian. I seriously doubt that if Jesus does come back, he's going to want to go pray, in a Catholic church where he's a dead guy on a stick, half naked. I don't think he'd appreciate that at all. If Jesus was Jewish, he would condemn idol worship, and yet here's a church that built up, that all the Christian stuff pretty much stems from, that's built upon a church that used him as an idol, used him as an object of worship, a real space-time, three-dimensional, solid, engraven image that people were bowing down to. I'm not sure Jesus would be too happy with that. It's not Jesus' fault. I didn't say it was Jesus' fault. I say, yeah, he would not be, he wouldn't be happy. He'd probably smash it into 1,000 pieces. He'd probably pull it off the wall and grind it into powder. And condemning those who claim themselves to be God-fearers, that's what I think he'd do. Jesus killed pigs, yeah. He apparently exorcised demons out of some people and put them in pigs who drowned themselves in the ocean, a whole herd of them. From what I gather in Torah law, you are prohibited, except in self-defense, to cause harm to a pig if you're Jewish. In any way. You're not allowed to eat them. I'm not sure about petting. I'm not sure if you can actually touch one. I don't think there's a prohibition about touching, but you can't cause the animal undue harm. You can't, you don't use them in your fields, so there's no strife with the plow and the animal. None of that. But yeah, they can't eat them, and they're prohibited from causing undue harm to an animal. So putting demons in a herd of pigs and the pigs driving themselves in the ocean sounds a little like sorcery to me. It doesn't sound like something a rabbi would do. Killing a tree. There's a prohibition in Torah about killing fruit trees. And here the Jesus character, this story tells about Jesus walking up to a fig tree at a time when it's not supposed to give fruit and curses the tree for not giving fruit at the time it wasn't supposed to be giving fruit. That to me, yes, absolutely. I would reject that. Absolutely. It's either the story's completely made up, or there has been stuff that's added to it. Because a lot of what Jesus says, even in Matthew, makes sense in some cases. I'm going to read what Gabriel said here, not the parentheses. It says, Jesus was never a Christian. The term itself didn't even exist in his time. The first pro-Christians were a Jewish sect called the Ebionites. They believed in Jesus as the Messiah, but not as God. They also didn't believe in the Trinity, and they completely rejected the New Testament as it exists today, except for an Abrahamic version of the Gospel of Matthew, which didn't include the virgin birth. They also rejected Paul. Mind you, these were the Jews that actually knew the real Jesus when he was alive. The term Christian and Christianity came into play only after Paul started his new movement based on his own claims of divine revelation that have nothing to do with either Jesus or Judaism.
Now, I would agree with everything about the Ebionites except for, because I don't believe in the Trinity, I don't even get that. And what else is there? Well, of course, I can't reject the New Testament. But as the Messiah, I completely agree. I don't get this notion as God. When did that come about? And why is that acceptable? I don't know. I'll stop there before I get rolling a little too much. I'm gonna get something to drink. I'll be right back.
One of the things that really bugs me about Paul, by the way, one of the things that bugs me about Paul, in Torah, we learn that all things come from one God, that all things, not one blade of grass blows without the will of God making it happen. There's no God allowed this or God allowed that. We learn in Torah first, perhaps God does allow, I don't know, but first we must understand fundamentally in context of Torah that all things come from God, even what we call evil. God even says, I create evil. Now, if all things come from God and all things happen by God's will alone, why does Paul turn around and say that the evil one is in charge of the world? He calls him the evil one. Those are his words. Now, from a Noahide or even a Hebrew perspective, that's just okay. Then what God are you talking about, Paul? What evil are you calling God the evil one? Because according to the text you claim to be a part of, and I've heard he was an Orthodox Jew, why would he say the evil one is in control? I just don't understand. I think that there was a Jesus. I do think that he was probably a good man. I think he was probably Jewish. I just think that for political reasons, Rome, I'm just going to say it with the capital R, Rome, had to include things to better fit their faith. They took a good man and used him as an idol to show the world this is what we do to Jews. And even the Christians know better than have. I mean, the Christians are waking up. You know, now a Christian in the past couple hundred years, really, and that's it, has been free to look deeper into their text, to see the origins of where all this stuff comes from, to read the Old Testament for what it is. Even through a bad translation, it's better than not knowing it all and taking it from someone's point of view, Martin Luther or the King of England or the Pope. You know, that relationship with God, that one-on-one, the whole pilgrim thing, you know, get away from the king, get away from dogma. They respected a lot of the Hebrew as well, and they were Christian, but they were able to see more to it than what they've been taught. You know, there's a lot more to it. Then he says if there was no Jesus, there would be no there wouldn't be Christianity. That's true. That's true. I mean, I'm sure they could have made one up, but I don't think it would have had near the impact if it weren't based on a real human. I wouldn't be. I would be one of those Jews who'd have pulled him off the cross. I wouldn't have allowed that to happen. But you know, I mean, what's Judas to do? According to the Gospel of Judas, they found Jesus said, "You're the only one who can turn me in." And if the Romans came to him and said, "You either give us your leader, or we're going to wipe out all of his followers," and there were a lot of people who liked what Jesus said at the time, according to what we've got here. Give us your leader, and we'll let the rest of you live. That would, I mean, if that were the case, they went back on their word, which, you know, would make sense. Another thing that historically doesn't make sense is there's not one case ever in history of Rome allowing the mob to cast judgment in a Roman court.
Hmm.
That's not a for Passover. We'll go ahead and do you a favor. That's not historical. Rome was not like that at all. They created a Senate for Pete's sakes. And I'm not saying that the temple wasn't corrupt. Everyone think, oh, the Jews are corrupt. Just look what they did to Jesus. It's like, well, the temple came down for a reason. That temple, the second temple, I'm learning, was not even erected by Jews. That was erected by a Persian pagan king. That's why there were no miracles at the second temple. The first temple, we had miracles right and left. It was apparent God's presence was there. Everybody knew it. Even into Babylon, of course, it fell then too. But the second temple wasn't even built by Jews. And with that said, I mean, I guess I can understand why Israel might leap at the opportunity to have another temple built at that time when they were in exile. I can understand that, but it came down for a reason. So that no one's saying the Jews are blameless. The whole of the entire Old Testament gives plenty of instances where Israel strays from God, and how God reminds them through prophecy to come back to Him, and they do eventually. I mean, yes, we all stray, but you gotta when you fall down, when you get pushed down, when you slip, you gotta get back up. You gotta keep at it. That's 2 cents of mine right there. Take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm. I'm just eating a little bit, so I'm not going to say much.
Lost my phone. I'll be right back. Y'all don't mean to keep skipping out on you. Hang on. Okay. Well, one of the reasons why I think the Muslim might do that is when you're pagan or you're full of idolatry. They're not fond of idolatry either. Their look at idolatry is almost as radical as mine. Actually, I'm not saying that. There are probably some radical notions, but yeah. Idolatry is a bad thing in Islam. The Temple Mount, whether we like it or not, that's preserving that area. Whether we like it or not, we might not, but they're preserving that. It'll come to Israel when she's ready. It will, but right now they're not ready. That's the other thing. See, all things come from God. Everything comes from God, and everything comes for a darn good reason. For a darn good reason. Oh, it was renovated by. Okay, I apologize. Gabrielle corrected me. Bless you, Gabrielle. The second temple was built by Jews, but it was later renovated by King Herod, who was an absolute monster. Is this the King Herod who put the pagan God in the temple? Okay, Gabrielle says it was placed in charge by Rome, but he was the son of an Arab princess and an Idumean convert to Judaism. He put a Roman eagle on the temple. Okay. Okay. I apologize. Yeah, thank you. Is Herod the reason why the miracles ceased at the temple? He was a Saddam Hussein of Roman-occupied Judea. Oh, wow. Wow. Hey, brother, what's up? How you doing, sir?
What's up, James? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I really can't complain.
Hey, bro, Joe.
I want to know what's up with your boy Ruben. Where has he been? Yes, Brother John, I'm talking to you. Oh, cool. What a new. Okay, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
Ruben,
I haven't-
he's around. You'll have to ask him. I really don't know.
That's why I was asking Brother John.
Oh. Well, brother John, we expect an answer from you.
I don't know. What's up with him?
Where's he been?
I haven't the faintest. I actually haven't taken notice for the last couple of days.
And don't start with my brother's keeper.
I won't.
I think I first met Ruben when I was in a hangout with Brother John, one of your hangouts, Brother John. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I know Ruben from back in the Stickam days.
That's right. That's right.
He went under smart. So what are you guys talking about? I saw biblical literalism we're talking about.
Yeah.
Does it mean something different for Noahides? Is it a bad thing for a Noahide to be a literalist? And what is biblical literalism as a Noahide compared to, say, the Christian folk or the general Western, even, atheists or, agnostics or critics, whatnot? Is biblical literalism a bad thing?
I personally think so.
Well, speak to us. What's your talk about it? Speak. I got a baby here, so I can't talk too much. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of lunch too, but I don't know. When you get to stories like talking snakes and animals and things like that, taking these things literally, yeah, I have an issue with.
Could it be that wouldn't the story could only make sense if you take it literally? I mean, if you're going to understand, even if it is just a story. The reason why I ask is it would be, I mean, if you're not
I'm
going
sorry.
to, when I say take it literally, just for the sake of context, did Eve come from Adam's side? Did Adam come from Eve's side? What does the story say? The story says that Eve came out of Adam's side.
Hmm.
Okay, well, that's taking it too literally, some would say. I'm saying, no, that's just what the text says. Well, you're a literalist. And I'm like, what? I'm confused, I thought the whole point of being a Noahide was to cut through the dogma and get to what's written. Anyway, we can look at, I mean, of course it was given orally. Yes, there is an oral Torah. Yes, there are commentaries. And no, I'm not denouncing commentary or oral Torah, but if you want to read this thing, I would think that you'd want to get the story straight first and then expand on it and then find the allegory or the esoteric meaning. That's what I meant by biblical literalism, and I think what I'm learning here is that biblical literalism in the modern era is, someone who looks at who takes a really bad translation out of context and takes it literally.
Well, to the Noahide, what does the serpent in the garden represent?
I guess it depends on whether they're a literalist or not. James?
James?
Oh, he might have stepped away for a sec.
Sorry, I'm trying to juggle microphone, but hold on. Hang on. Right now. Oh dear.
Oh, feed the baby.
There's Reuben.
Well, speak of the devil.
Or Reuben. Shalom, where the heck have you been? Oh. And where the hell's J-Dubs been? But where have you been in general? I haven't seen you like in 2 weeks. Type faster, Reuben. You can type fast. Oh, that's hilarious. No, Benny.
To answer your question, John, after all this time, the serpent in Genesis was an upright creature who could openly communicate with humans, probably closer to a human being than a snake.
And now there's J-Dubs. Who's talking about you? I was talking about you too.
Everyone's asking where you guys have been and where you're at, and I said, you have to ask them. Well, here they are.
So this is like a reptilian lizard people we talking about
Yes.
here? Really? Okay. See, now you take that as what? Now, if I were to take that literally, because you literally mean it's this creature actually existed, a reptilian-like human being. Yeah, I take issue with that.
That's understandable, but I mean but that's what the text says. That's the story that it tells. Now, I just take it as for what it is, as a story. You can have Goldilocks and the three iguanas, and I'm sure that you're free to say that those are actually iguanas in that story. Or in the Jack and the Beanstalk, it just magically appeared there one day and no one knew how. You're going to cut out the whole meaning of the story. Does that mean you believe in a giant beanstalk? No, but if you start the story in the middle, you're not going to get the meaning or the moral of the story. So you can say Goldilocks and the three iguanas wouldn't have near the effect as, taking it for what it says, Goldilocks and the three bears. You get my drift?
No.
Okay. No, I understand. Okay. When I guess literal, I mean literally existed. This thing is, it's not okay. The story, I could take it literal, means a serpent, yeah, but did it actually exist in this physical world? That's what I mean by literal.
Yeah, we don't have scientific evidence either way. I'm just saying, for the sake of studying the Torah, you should take it for what it says first. And whether you believe it or not, it's your own gig, and you're free to believe whatever you want. But we shouldn't gloss over the text because it doesn't fit our personal interpretations. I think, and personally, it's better to stick with the text for what it says, as close to or at the Hebrew as you can possibly get it, and then go from there. And I know that, and Frank brought up a really good point earlier. I don't know if he's still in the room. Yeah, he is. That sometimes when you go straight literal like that, you're going to get into the esoteric. It's going to be more thought and less discussion. And what is discussed is going to probably come from a place so far off the mark, it might lead discussion to something which we weren't intending in the first place. Gabriel had it best. He said whether or not it's literally happened isn't important. That's missing the whole point. The problem is the underlying moral. Now, I mean, you said you didn't get that you didn't get the three bear analogy compared to the three iguana.
No.
Well, it's not. Iguanas don't frighten people. They don't eat them. It wouldn't frighten Goldilocks to see three lizards looking up from the floor at her when she got out of bed. It would frighten you if there were three bears.
Oh, that's hilarious. I never saw that story as frightening. I would be I'd be scared by both, but I'd be scared by iguanas too because I don't like creepy, crawly lizard things. But I've never seen it from that interpretation.
Well, she got frightened and ran away.
But she got frightened because they were Huh. I just thought she got frightened because she was like in somebody's house and they came home. I never really I personified them so much that as a kid I just thought that they were like people of some sort. I never thought of them as somebody being like, no, they're bears. Because
How
in my
about Jack
mind,
and the how about
bears don't eat porridge or rock in chairs. Does that make sense?
yeah, how about Jack and the Beanstalk, where the whole moral of the story was you spent your last bit that we needed on food and you bought a magic bean that didn't bring, and he had to go on this big huge magical adventure to bring the bean back. But if you don't have the moral of the story in that you don't sell your last bit for magic, or don't get taken in by a sucker, it kind of loses the meaning of the whole Jack and the Beanstalk story.
But no, because the whole point of Jack and the Beanstalk was that sometimes you take those chances because he got so much rewarded with so much more by taking the magical beans.
That's true. But if you cut out the whole bit of him buying one with the last bit of money his family gave him, I think it really takes the story out of context. You can't cling to the beanstalk and not cling to why it was planted in the first place. I think another one would be Cinderella. Would it matter that she had stepsisters? Does that change the story that she was um, how about Snow White without a jealous mom? What's the point? Why not? I mean, well, you're taking the story literally. It's like, no, I'm keeping the story in context. Whether the whether there's a global wide flood that killed everybody on Earth and every living thing that breathed is one thing, but the text says specifically that's what happened. So I mean, we can try to rework that to fit our own ego, but we're getting away from the text. I think that you know if you have to keep with the story first, and then whether it's literal or allegory, which there is allegory, and I'm not denying any of these things. I don't know. That's a really good thought about the beanstalk. I never really thought about it that way.
Fascinating. It's just so interesting how we're all read the same stories growing up, but just totally different perspectives on them.
When telling the World War II story, why don't we just leave the Japs out of it?
The
That's not literal.
Japanese?
Let's only take the Hitler part literal. Why not remove the Japs from the story? What's it really make it?
Japanese. Can't
What's
call
it?
them
What?
Japs.
Well, I'm not. Okay, the Japanese.
Okay.
Um, why don't we just take them out of the story too? Why not? And not take that part literally, but take the Hitler part literally. Would the history of the World War II mean the same thing?
Yeah, but my whole thing is I'm not saying that there aren't aspects of all of those that are literal, but you lose a lot if you don't see the backstories, the nuance involved in all of it, right? So if we don't understand the notion of like what it was to be a kamikaze soldier, we're not going to understand why um, these soldiers in Japan were willing to go at all levels to push their cause forward. Like, we're not even going to get that because we're like, why would a soldier kill himself for a mission? Hello? Did I cut out? Son of a gun! You guys still there? Hello?
I hear you, Amy.
Okay. Sorry about that. I thought I cut out. Excuse me.
No, you didn't.
Oh, okay.
We're probably all doing other things as while we're in the hangout.
Yeah. Well, it's the first time I'm laying down now. Had my brisk iced tea, baby.
It's brisk, baby.
Oh, it is brisk, yeah. That's like my favorite drink. It's like my splurge once or twice a week. Because I can't really drink soda. I don't like fizz.
finished lunch. I had a gyro. I was in the mood for a gyro a couple of days ago. So I just came back from Home Depot. I had to get some paint. I got to do some painting in a little bit here. And I saw a gyro place. I'm like, perfect.
It's called a gyro.
Well, in New York, we call them gyros.
Oh, gosh. That's why I was like, what's a gyro? And then I was like, oh.
I think we talked about this the other day, right?
No, I've never
Oh,
done
okay.
it. Okay.
Because, yeah, I saw a commercial. I think, who's selling them now? Arby's. And they're calling them gyros. They're calling them gyros. I'm like, no.
I would never have a gyro from Arby's.
See, you call them euro. It almost sounds like euros.
Gyro.
They're calling them gyros.
Oh, no.
Screw you, Reuben.
So it's not pho, like that Vietnamese soup. It's not pho, it's pho. Pho.
So, Reuben, I guess pizza is a pizza?
It's a pizza.
It's a pizza. You say tomato, I say tomato. Or actually, I say tomato, you say tomato.
I say target.
Yeah, that's what I call it too. Tarjay.
And then I call it home to pot, especially in Colorado.
Home to pot. How long ago did James start to hang out? Were you here from the beginning, Jeremy?
I wasn't, no.
Oh.
Gav and Frank were in here before me. And someone else. Oh, Benny.
Kind of surprised we're all here at this time of the day.
I don't know. When I look at Cinderella, when I look at the beans, when I look at all that different stuff, I don't literally think that, I don't know, the fairy godmother even existed, but that she changed the pumpkin into a carriage. Literally, I think there's probably some magic that went on, at least in my head, but I don't see too much of that story that was literal. But it was it's like those were make believe. Whereas the Bible, if it's inspired word of God, some of it is allegory, some of it is literal, and some of it is, I don't know, magical. And in that magical stuff, it's like, what's the story trying to tell you? What's the theme? The moral? It was funny. We did a hangout on air about probably about a year ago now. My mom did it where we cooked some African food and we told stories of our culture. And my mom told, no, one folk story from Cameroon. And I won't bore you with the details, but it's about a fish and a crab and what happens on their adventure and how the problems get solved. And it was interesting because even as a little kid, like the stories that I was told were actually a little bit gruesome. They're about life and death and things that are, but it's still a fairy tale. But I didn't take any of it literally. Like, I didn't think crabs could talk or fish or sing for that matter. And if they did, it wouldn't have been a language I would understand. So I don't know.
Is it possible that you could have the same story of The Little Mermaid if Ariel was a lumberjack?
Well, you
Just
couldn't
curious.
have the same story, but could you have a story with the same morals? Probably.
She'd be the little lumberjack.
Would you call it The Little Mermaid?
No, because it's
No.
not a mermaid.
Would any of the characters in Little Mermaid pertain to a lumberjack?
Probably not if they're under the sea.
So if you don't take the story for what it is first, on its literal text, it loses all meaning.
Yeah, but if you do take it literally for everything, it loses a lot of other meaning. I mean, it's kind of like driving. You have to be able to do more than one thing at once. You got to see it from all sides, you know? You got to check your rear view mirror and what's literally in front of you. You want to keep duking this out, James?
No, I'm
I'm having
nothing out with
fun.
me. You're not changing my mind.
I know. My mind has only been changed twice on Google Plus.
Explain. When it comes to the Bible?
Yeah, and it had to do with, it was an argument around, hold on a sec, let me think. Um, gosh, I've already forgotten the argument. If somebody brought it up, I'd be able to support it. But it was a really good support and justification for this argument, and it was with uh what's his name? His name is Jack. He's like the administrator's dad. Um, it was Roy in there. It was the sock puppet guy, sock account. Um, and so it was just very nice to hear that it was actually a logical, thought out way of thinking about the situation. So, and then what was this? The first time, that was the most recent one. And the first one, it was Jimmy Stevens when I first met him. He had a lot of good thinking behind why he believes the way he does. And I wish I could be more specific, but my brain's just fried right now. Is anyone still there?
Still here.
I don't know. I was just excited to see Reuben and J Dubs. I haven't seen them in forever. I missed 1 week. Then I'm like, what happened to everybody?
Is that J Dubs? Oh, he's on the Judah Maccabee now?
Yeah.
J Dubs. How you doing, John? Maybe the baby don't like the discussion.
Uh, I still remember that day we read the book of, what was it, Esther, Reuben? Oh, it was. Oh, yeah. He sounds like his 3 month old is a little colicky. Always starts about 6 weeks to 2 months, where they just fuss. My kid was colicky too, and as she got older, she was the most chill kid ever. So I'm glad I dealt with 2 months of you know where, because the rest of it was very easy.
Speaking of, how did her prom go?
Oh, it was awesome. Did you see the picture, Brother John?
Yes, I did. I commented that she looked gorgeous. Loved the dress. She had
Yeah,
the whole
thank you.
Asian thing going on. She even has like a little Asian look.
Yeah, it was really funny. Um, it was the first time in history where they actually broke gender norms. First time for sure at Boulder High, where the prom queen was a guy. Just so happens that Rowan's gay, but totally just trying to break the gender norms. And so they did that. And it's really funny because we're doing our graduation party together, Rowan and Ari. And so they'll have homecoming queen and prom queen, boy and girl at one graduation party. So it was really good. And I was laughing because you guys helped me pick out the dress on Google Plus.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't know if anybody remembers that day. And
yeah, I
she
do.
saw it, and her mouth dropped open when she saw the dress, and it was $50.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, do
So
they have a prom? They have a prom king?
they had a prom king, yep, but they did not have a king and queen dance this year.
Okay. That might be unusual if the king is straight.
Right. A lot of the girls were mad.
That's understandable.
Yeah. It was a great, great. She didn't get home until like 5 in the morning.
Now I have to ask, was he wearing a dress?
No, no. He was wearing a tux. He looks very nice. They had a bunch of pictures taken together. It was great.
Yeah, I guess I can understand the girls being all upset. They're all getting
Yeah.
all nice and taking all that time to get dressed and everything.
Thinking that they might be named Queen, and then
Yeah.
it's some Queen. Oh, it was great. His mom was like in tears, and it was fantastic.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Well, she's gotten quiet for a while. I walked full speed around the house and all throughout the house, and I don't know what the probably was. She was up all night last night. I get about 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep a night, because it's
Oh,
just a constant state of cry. I guess it's colic, but this is 3.5 months. They wouldn't call it colic at this point.
yeah, it
Um,
lasts until about 3.5 months, from 6 to 8 months to three
yeah,
to 4 months. Usually lasts 6 to 8 weeks. When did it start?
a couple of days ago, and
Oh,
it's
then maybe not.
yeah, like I said, this is I would call it. It's Madeline. My first daughter was colicky. Um, Really rough to deal with the amount of cry and scream. Um, but she grew out of it. This one lately, and we don't know if it's. I mean, she's breastfed, only breast milk.
Mm.
You know, she's got a clean diaper and everything that made her happy before. Then it's just a matter of she's always nervous and always looking around and cries a lot. And it's
What's mom been
relative.
eating?
I'm say that again.
What has mom been eating these past few days?
Oh, I
Anything
don't
different?
know. We had Chinese food last night. Um,
Night before that?
Before that, I'm what did we have? Pasta. I had pasta and green beans, cream pasta.
I would say check
Stroganoff.
that.
That's what it was. Stroganoff. She made stroganoff. We had stroganoff. We had the day before that. What did we eat the day before that? It was I don't know. I wasn't here. I don't know what she had for dinner on Monday.
Yeah, but just check. It could be something as simple as she had a bunch of dairy the past few days or something, and your daughter's just not liking that.
Something. Okay, I think I might have gotten her some sleep. Ah, yes. I like him awake and happy, but I like him sleeping quiet too.
Right. You're amazing, because I'd take a nap if I were you.
I can't nap. I got to go to work here in a little bit. I'm gonna go wipe the sweat that's like drenching. I'll be right back, and then maybe I can actually talk to you fine folks. You're kind enough to show. Hang on.
On a lighter note, back home for a second, Ari looked so good. Like there were teachers that took pictures with her and stuff, and they're like, "Oh my God, you look amazing!" And it was so funny because she said, "Mom, I've never seen it before where there were guys dancing with their dates, but they were still checking me out." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, Ari." All right, done talking about my kid. And yes, Reuben, there will be no teenage pregnancies for prom queen. Guarantee it. He won't be knocking anybody up.
I can give you an example, a good example of this biblical literalism thing that just that it doesn't. I don't think it defies logic or reason. For instance, it was brought up in one of the parshas about 3 weeks ago, I guess. I don't remember the exact parsha, but Aaron was to remain in the tent of meeting at all times for so many days. Now, there is a prayer. Rabbi Dove called it a potty prayer. The Jews say after doing their business. Something along the lines of, "Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who allows my body to function, for I would die if it hadn't." Something along those lines. I don't remember the exact words. And so that means that if your innards weren't working right, you could die.
Right?
So does that mean that Aaron stays in the tent the whole time? Now it says the whole time. You stay. He does not go away from the tent of meeting. I think it was Aaron. Yeah. And he remains there for so many days. Does this mean that he goes to the bathroom in the Holy of Holies? Obviously, if it's literally said that, no. I mean, the text doesn't
Or
change
it
just
could
because
mean
you're
that
too.
he didn't have to go to the bathroom
Yes,
the
that was.
whole time.
Yes, yes, yeah. Oh, you're smart.
Like it's tough to say. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just
Should we not take the story for what it says first? That's what I call literal. Maybe I have no. That's why I ask. What is biblical literalism? Am I actually a literalist, or am I just am I just a stickler about you know keeping the story intact as best as I possibly can? I wouldn't consider myself a literalist until I actually had a thought about, well, you take it literally. It's like, no, I take it for what it says. Whether I believe it or not, or the allegory it teaches, is beside the point.
hmm.
Judah, I remarried, or Judah, Judah. John, he said he'll probably never find a wife. I didn't find the wife until I was about 35, 34. Oh, geez, I was 33. Wow, 7 years. gosh,
What do you mean? Oh, it's been 7 years. Okay.
since I proposed. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, John, mine doesn't fit in either. She doesn't have a bunch of tattoos, you know. She doesn't have these odd piercings in her tongue, you know. She doesn't decorate her scalp with a soldering iron or shave a mohawk. Um, she doesn't go out and have abortions on a regular basis because it's painless. She's not. There are good ones out there. You just got to move west. They raise them so stupid they even fall in love with my sorry ass. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, I think I'm going to go hop in the shower.
Okay.
Maybe I'll
Get
take a
clean.
bubble bath. It's a bubble bath day, I think.
There you go.
I only take a bath like once a year.
And you shower the other, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I. Yeah, that sounded wrong. After I said it, I was like, well, just leave it there. We'll see if anybody else picks it up. And you guys did faster than anything. Oh,
Enjoy your bath. Get a glass of wine.
that's a good idea.
Some candles. Play some music and relax.
Now you're talking, Brother John.
Yeah.
I think I will do all of those things. Where is a good candle?
Thank you for coming in here, Mean, and talking to us and
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'll
being your
talk to
awesome
you in a
self.
few hours.
Groovy.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Smell you later. Shut up, Reuben.
Brother John, Brother John, Brother John.
Yes.
Oh, you, sir, have inspired me.
How so?
I have a little something I stash away for a rainy day. Oh, I can't show it because my camera's not on. It's one of those little bitty bottles, you know, little liquor bottles you get for $1.
Okay.
I have one of some Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 Kentucky whiskey.
And how is that an inspiration from me?
Oh, I get a glass of wine, relax, and
Oh, okay.
it's like, well, I have no wine. I have vermouth. That's not wine. Not really.
But wait, you got to go to work.
That's okay. I have an hour to. One serving of Jack Daniel's isn't going to affect me by the time I go to work. Besides, today's tasting day. One of our sponsors, or this week's sponsor, is Sousa Tequila at the Classic Rock Station. Now, I do weather and traffic reports in the news, but for him, for the rock station, I do a live read of the so we banter back and forth. So we're live. Maybe I shouldn't say this live. Anyway, we get to sample certain drinks.
Nice.
Yeah. L'chaim.
Yeah, I used to drink Jack Daniels when a teenager. Now I can't even smell the. Now I can't even smell the bottle. It gets me nauseous.
Rum does that with me. I've had bad experiences with rum. Most of it's I associate myself. My own stupidity doesn't smell like rum, but rum reminds me. Gabrielle, I understand that. My wife came from a town with 800 people in the Midwest, you know? And there's a lot she doesn't know about, and I think that makes her a better person.
How did you guys meet?
At the local watering hole.
Was that in that town of 800 people, or was?
It's the town next to it of about 1,000 people.
Okay.
It's what you do on Friday night up there, Saturday night. You know, you go up and do karaoke. I was a karaoke whore for a long time, and I'd seen her up there for a while, and I was friends with her brother, and he was like my chum, and kind of became a bit of a friend. And one night we just got to talking, and it was real nice. And then she'd tease, she'd come around and talk to you for a little bit, and then walk off and ignore you, and if I try to flirt. And, during these times, you are consuming some alcoholic beverages, and Kansas, piss water beer. and there is that social thing, but there came a time when it was just, it was a vision I had. Well, I was kissing her. I know we're not supposed to kiss. That's very bad, okay? We were misbehaving. Yes, we were. We were making out, necking, that's it, but still. Bad. We're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to touch them. Anyway, we're making out, and I just had a vision of, wow, she would be a really good mom and a good wife. I could take this, and it just kind of came out of my mouth like, do you want to get married? I didn't say the words, do you want to marry me? But I did say, and it came out, and this is hours after the beer's already gone, already consumed and done. This is hours later. And she says, yes. Yeah. Just like that. And so went home. My stepmom was actually up. It was late. And, what are you up to, James? Well, I think I just got engaged. Oh, isn't that nice? Little did she know.
Wait, the first day that you met her?
No.
It's, okay.
We were talking on MySpace before we had the chat on Facebook thing, when you was in inbox the whole time. We filled up pages of inbox on this conversation. She's like, I'm making enchiladas. I'll be up there Wednesday. If you want to come, I'll bring you a serving. I'm like, all right. And when I ate them, she had fire. She doesn't mind fire. I like spicy foods. I like when I eat Mexican food, I do like it spicy. I do not fear the habanero. I do not fear the chili sauce. And she cooked it with some fire, so I knew I was onto something then.
Nice.
5 or 6 times. That's about what I think I hung with Lisa maybe 3 or 4.
Wow.
And if I did stay the night with her, I didn't sleep in the same covers. I would sleep on top of the covers. I'd already claimed her as a wife. I kind of sort of did it in her family. I know you're supposed to ask the father, and I made my intentions clear. Instead of asking the father for her hand, I says I consider her my wife. I have no intention of leaving her ever. We're gonna get married. Might have been presumptuous, but I guess it worked. Gabrielle, that's awesome. I gotta ask you this: was it fireworks, or did it just fit like a glove? It was fit like a glove for me. There were no fireworks and going home where I'm stupid in love and walking into walls and stuttering. It was very comfortable. It was very okay. Here we are. It was. Did you have the fireworks for such a quick decision? Nice. Yeah. In Hollywood, they want to tell you that it's all about the fireworks and the the emotions and the feelings, and really in my decision it was a lot of logic. Hollywood love is bullshit. No kidding. I'll second that. Well, I have to be going here fairly soon. I'm going to take it off the live broadcast. Thank you all for coming by. If you happen to watch this and you got this far, wow. Kudos. Shalom, be well.